Can't believe I'm having to make a video like this, but it's about time I made a video about this. So, I was on Twitter earlier on today and I made a tweet that said, I wonder how many less killings there would be in America if they just had proper gun control laws. And somebody came back at my tweet to say, hey, nobody wants to hear your opinion about our US Constitution. When the British came over, we sent you back home with your tail between your legs. I wonder how many less stabbings there would be in the UK if you just allowed for guns to be in place. And I just looked at that tweet like, boy, you're so stupid. Because first of all, if you had more guns in the UK, you actually allowed people to have guns in the UK, there would be less stabbings, but then there would be more shootings. So, and then second of all, the guy was, it was so irritating to me that this guy thought that gun control is against your constitutional right as an American, because the problem is a lot of Americans seem to, they know that the Second Amendment is the right to bear arms, but people can't even agree on the correct interpretation of that law. And furthermore, it's as if a lot of Americans are extremely blind to the nature of the country as it stands with regards to shootings. So I wanted to know what you guys think. Like, should there be stricter gun control laws in America, or should there not be? Right now, let me lay it out, because for me, unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to be the guy who plays devil's advocate in this. I can't give both sides of the argument simply because I just do not agree with the way things are now in America. I 150% believe that there should be stricter gun control laws in America. There's just no sense in my mind that there shouldn't that shouldn't be the case, that everything is fine the way it is. There's literally no reason to agree with that side of things. As far as there's no argument you can make, no logical argument you can make. So let's hit you with some stats. Right now, about 40% of Americans have admitted to owning a gun or living in a household with one. America currently has the highest rate of murder or manslaughter by firearm in the developed world, right? So out of all these countries that claim to be the Western world and claim to have good technology and progressive governments and all that sort of stuff, they have the highest rate of murder or manslaughter by firearm, right? Now, there were almost 11,000 deaths as a result of murder or manslaughter by firearm in 2007 in America, right? 11,000 deaths. But that's not even the worst bit, right? 73% of all homicides in the US are the result of firearms, according to stats from 2017. Now, if we compare to similar stats in similar sort of countries, right? Out of all homicides, in the UK, it was 3% in 2017. In Canada, it's 38% in 2018. In Australia, it's 13% in 2013 and 2014. So 73% of all homicides were as a result of a firearm. Okay, now per 100 people, right, per 100 residents of the country, the US has the most guns, right? So per 100 people, there is 120.5 guns. There's literally more guns per person in America than any other country. As in, every single person in the country has a gun. There's enough guns for everybody in the country, plus some. It's ridiculous. You have more than one gun as a US citizen. The next highest, the second highest per 100 people is Yemen with 52.8. So less than half of the other, 120.5 versus 52.8, less than half the ownership. So whereas in America, everybody has at least one gun per person, in Yemen, 2 people are sharing a gun. That's what it equates to. Just for comparison as well, the next door neighbor of America, Canada, has 34.7. 34.7. So that's one gun between 3 people versus one gun per person in America. Well, technically like 1.2 guns per person in America. Come on, right? Now, in Europe, because I mean, people are allowed to have guns in Europe as well, right? Switzerland and Finland are the places that have the most guns per person. With Finland, it's 32.4, and the reason for that is because they have mandatory military participation for ages 18 to 35. Okay, so when you are a man 18 to 35 in Finland and Switzerland, you will go to the army, and so yeah, that's part of the reason why you would end up having a gun. But even then, it's still regulated so that only the militia can have guns. But anyway, moving on. In the US, there have been over 110 mass shootings since 1982. Now, a mass shooting is categorized as when 4 or more people are killed indiscriminately. So in terms of, okay, there are 4 or more people in one space, there's been over 110 instances of that happening in US history. Now, the thing is, the argument for gun control tends to come up a lot when mass shootings happen, but mass shootings do not account for a majority of gun deaths in America. It's actually extremely small percentage. So, just to give you an idea, in 2016, there were 38,658 deaths. Out of those deaths, 22,938 were suicides by firearm. 14,415 were homicides, right? So 22,000, almost 23,000 were suicides by gun. Almost 14,500 were homicides. Out of that, 71 died in mass shootings. So way less than 1%, right? And 1,305 deaths were other, right? So that could be accidental deaths or they were casualties of war. But can you imagine, like, almost 23,000 deaths in America by the hands of a gun were suicide, right? And then almost 14,500 were homicides, right? Murders and manslaughters and all that sort of thing. Now, in terms of the types of guns that do the killing, 64% of firearm deaths in America are caused by handguns. Only 4% are by rifles, 2% are by shotguns, 2% are other types of guns, and then 28% are unknown. They have no real knowledge of what type of gun killed the person. All they know is that a gun killed this person, right? But 64% of them were caused by handguns. So it's not even like the shotguns and the rifles and, you know, all those sorts and semi-automatics and all that stuff are the problem. It's the handguns. The handguns are the problem. Now, a handgun on average in America costs just $200, which is the price of a Chromebook laptop, right? Whereas an assault rifle costs $1,500 in America, which is about the price of a MacBook, okay? Now, just look at that, right? The gun that costs more is responsible for less deaths. It's funny how that works, isn't it? Right? Which is going to bring me onto a point in a second. But it just goes to show how easy and relatively cheap it is for you to own a handgun in America. Like, your phone is more expensive than that. Your PS4 is more expensive than that. There are Americans with shoes that are more expensive than a handgun. Handbags that are more expensive than a handgun. I hope you see where I'm going with this, right? There are things in your household right now. This watch over here, right? A Samsung Galaxy watch. This costs more than a handgun. I could trade this in for a handgun in America. This watch. I hope you see where I'm going with this, right? Some people have perfume that is more expensive than a handgun in America, okay? Now, as of 2018, 46% of Americans wanted stricter gun control laws. Isn't that interesting? That 46% of Americans thought that gun control laws were too lax and actually we need more of it. 39% were satisfied, fair enough, and then only 8% wanted looser gun control laws. 8%. You see that 8% there? That is the 8% that you don't want to have a gun. I'm sorry, but if you look at the way shootings are in America at the moment, and just the culture of guns is like in America at the moment, and you think that, nah, it's too strict, I should be able to have guns a lot easier, you are an absolute imbecile as far as I'm concerned. You're an idiot, and you do not deserve to have a gun, right? F the Second Amendment in the Constitution. You don't deserve to have a handgun or a firearm, because you're just an idiot. You're insane. That 8% are the people that should not have handguns, should not have firearms, point blank, period. Okay? Now, let's get onto the Second Amendment, all right? Because a lot of gun control activists and lobbyists and people that are for it, a lot of them who tend to be NRA, NRA members, by the way, but a lot of people cite it as, it's against your constitutional right to have gun control, right? So let's look at the Second Amendment. Now, the Second Amendment of the United States Constitution reads, and I quote, "A well-regulated militia, being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed." End quote. Okay? A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Now, this was seen as a compromise between the Federalists, who supported the Constitution as it was ratified, and the Anti-Federalists, who are people that supported the states having more power. So it was just a middle ground between Federalists and Anti-Federalists back in the day when they used guns to get rid of the English, right? And the amendment was originally created to give citizens the opportunity to fight back against the federal government. Okay, so if any time the federal government decided to go schizo, people were able to defend themselves. Okay, now these days there are two schools of thought about how to interpret the Second Amendment in the Constitution. There's one side that thinks that the amendment provides collective rights to a state militia as protection against the official militia. So that is one group of people who say, okay, look, yes, we can have guns, but the people that have the guns are people in our own state militia that we've trained ourselves, that are highly trained individuals and stuff. And, you know what I mean? They're authorized to carry a gun just in case the president decides to go crazy one day and sick his militia on ours, right? We've now got our own militia to protect us against the president attacking us. So there's one school of people who think it's that. Then there's the other side who think that it's individual rights that are being provided to all American residents. So it doesn't matter who you are, if the police one day ever go crazy, you as an American have the right to defend yourself with firearms. So those are the two sides that exist. Either collective rights for basically a state militia, or individual rights for every American. And it's still a point of contention to this very day. I think, from my own interpretation of the Constitution, that it is the collective rights thing, right? Because think about it. It says a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Like, it's as if a lot of people who argue against gun control only look at half of the Constitution on that, right? They only look at half of that amendment, which is the right of the people to keep and bear arms. But they miss out the militia part, right? A well-regulated militia. So that means people that are trained, people that you keep tabs on. That's what well-regulated means. Being necessary to the security of a free state. So that means that it is necessary for you to protect everyone around you, right? To make sure that you guys stay free and stay unoppressed. So a well-regulated local group of people who have been trained properly in the usage of firearms to then protect you guys and keep you safe and keep you free. And these militia are going to be your own people, right? You guys will have the right to have arms as long as you're trained in doing so, and it's for the state, it's for the safety of the state. That's the way I see that amendment in the Constitution. Okay, now if we look at that Constitution again, it really annoys me when people say, oh, it is unconstitutional to have gun control, because I don't know about you. I've repeated it at least 3 times in this video. I haven't been keeping count, but I've repeated it at least 3 times. Not a single place in there does it state anything about you're allowed to have unlimited, uncontrolled access to arms. It says you have the right to keep and bear arms, but under what circumstances? It doesn't state that. It doesn't stipulate, okay, under any circumstances you're allowed to have thing. If anything, the circumstance is a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state. So if it's necessary for the security of a free state, then that's when you can get guns. But who am I? I'm just a British guy in the UK. Unfortunately, we got our asses kicked once upon a time in American history, and we had to go home with our tails between our legs. So flipping, what do I know, right? But I proposed this, okay? What if you used Japan's gun control laws and applied it to America? I will show you very quickly that Japanese gun control laws, by and large, do not infringe on your right as an American to bear and keep arms. Okay? So, Japanese gun control laws, just to show you how incredibly different the two countries are with regards to death and guns and such. In 2014, the US had recorded 33,599 gun deaths. Japan reported 6. So basically, 33,000, I'm going to round it up to 33,600, okay? Doing the maths in my head very, very quickly, that is about 5,600 times more. 5,600 times more deaths in the US than Japan by gun. Ridiculous. Now, this is why Japan has so little gun deaths. Now, to own a gun in Japan, you must, everything here is mandatory. You must take an all-day class, which is followed by a written exam and a shooting range test, and you have to score at least 95% in both tests for you to be able to own a gun. You also have mental health tests and drug tests. You have a criminal record check, and then an investigation is carried out that links you with extremist groups, and they also do background checks on anybody associated with you. So your family, your friends, even your work colleagues, all of them get an investigation, right? Just to make sure that they too are of sound mind and not a threat. The police have powers to deny gun licenses, as well as sweeping powers to search for and seize weapons. Personally, I think that part right there can be held back, just because I think that does impact on your right as an American to keep and bear arms. If the police can take the arms away from you at any point in time, then it kind of defeats the purpose of you being able to defend yourself against a corrupt police or corrupt militia. Okay, but anyway, handguns, right? So remember, 64% of deaths in America were caused by handguns, right? In Japan, handguns are outright banned. Only shotguns and air rifles are allowed. Shotguns and air rifles are the only 2 guns you're allowed to purchase in Japan. If we go back to how many shotgun deaths there were in America, 2%. Air rifles, we'll put them into the rifle category, right? 4%. So in total, that was 6% of deaths amongst Americans, right? Versus the 64% that was handguns. Now, going on, because it's still not done yet. The number of gun shops are restricted in Japan. So in most of Japan's near 40 prefectures, no prefecture is allowed more than 3 gun shops. So imagine that in each, let's say, state, right? In America, in each state in America, there's only 3 gun shops you're allowed. Only 3. Maybe you can adjust it a little bit depending on the size of the state, right? Or maybe you can do it instead in like boroughs or something like that. But ultimately, 3. Just 3 gun shops allowed in any prefecture in Japan. And you can only buy more bullets by returning the spent cartridges from your last purchase. All right. So if you bought I don't know, you bought a full clip of bullets from this gun shop. The only way you could buy more bullets is by bringing evidence that you have used up all of the last bullets that you bought. Okay? Police must be notified of where the gun and ammunitions are stored, and they must be stored separately under lock and key. Right? So the police need to know where your guns and your bullets are. That doesn't stop you as an American from having guns, right? The right to bear arms, the right to keep arms, that is still in place. But the police should know where your guns are. And you need to keep your guns and your bullets in 2 separate locations, both under lock and key. That does not stop you as an American from owning a gun and keeping a gun, okay? Police will inspect your guns once a year. That doesn't stop you from owning a gun and keeping a gun. Your license expires every 3 years, so you need to do the course and the tests again. So you have to do that all-day course, you have to do the written exam, and you have to do the shooting exam again with 95% on both tests again in 3 years' time. That doesn't stop you from getting it. You still have the right to go get a gun if you want to. Just make sure you're flipping qualified to use it first, right? Now, here's an interesting fact as well. Only 6 shots were fired by Japanese police nationwide in 2015. That is incredible. Like, think about that. The police force only needed to fire 6 shots across the entire nation to quell crime. And it's very interesting, the reasoning behind it, right? The reason why the Japanese police were able to do that is because their approach to violence is not to respond with an appropriate level of violence, but to de-escalate situations. Okay, one method of being able to subdue criminals in Japan is they kind of take like a really big mat and they roll up the criminal in this big mat, kind of like a big burrito or sushi roll or something, right? They roll you up in a big mat and they take you off to the police station to let you cool down. That's what they do to de-escalate situations and stop people from just being violent because they want to tone it down. Whereas in America, this is something I studied back in English when I was about 16 years old for GCSE, right? Gun control in America. And people in America are super, super trigger happy and super, super paranoid. It is almost impressive how paranoid Americans are, how worrisome they are for their well-being, and how they think that by owning a gun that you are more safe. When really, I can't remember where the statistic comes from now, but there was a study shown that said that if you own a gun, you are more likely to use that gun simply for the fact that you have it. You're more likely to be involved in a shooting or get shot simply by the fact that you own that gun. Whereas people that don't own guns are far less likely to be involved with like shootings and such. And it's all to do with mentality. Just because it's there, you kind of want to shoot it, right? Ladies and gentlemen, I've gone on a massive rant and I've thrown so much information at you, but I feel like it was necessary so you could understand just what it is like in America when it comes to shootings and when it comes to guns. And I wanted to put the question to you, okay? Remember once again that the wording of the Second Amendment of the United States Constitution is a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. I ask you, if you apply Japanese gun control laws to that amendment, does it impact, or does it restrict, or does it go against your constitutional right as an American to bear and keep arms? Does that process right there stop you and discount you completely from bearing arms, keeping guns? Or does it just regulate it a little bit? Because that's my argument. By all means, you have the right to own a gun, but you gotta be suitable, right? It's just like driving a car. The reason why we make people go on driving lessons and we give them licenses and we make sure that they're ready to drive a car is because if you don't, it's dangerous. If you don't regulate it, it's dangerous. It's people's lives that you're putting in hand. It's the same thing with a gun. I'm not saying that you can't own a gun in America. What I am saying though is make sure that the people that do own the guns are the people that should own guns. I know that if you're an American, you know at least one person you wish wasn't allowed to have a gun. You look at that person, you're like, you crazy fucker. You shouldn't have a gun, bro. You should not have a gun. You wish they did not have a gun. Whether it was like a crazy ex, a mate who's a bit crazy, your boss at work who you know is a madman and a lunatic, a police officer, someone who's just come back from the army and is going through a lot of shit right now, the kid who's being bullied in school, you know at least one person who you wish wasn't actually allowed a gun. So I ask you, ladies and gentlemen, do you think that gun control in America needs to be stricter? Do you think it's okay the way it is? Or are you an idiot and you think it needs to be looser? Let me know in the comments below, okay?